So hello again, everyone. I hope you are enjoying the Polish pastry, so to say. Just waiting a minute for people to have a seat. Especially when they are EMYA judges. Oh my God. Oh my God. No, they are well behaved, they just said. So, we are starting one of the last stretches, and well, let me introduce myself. I'm Pedro Branco. I'm coming from Portugal. I'm a Benfica and motorsports fan, father of two, and to get money to the table, I work at Museum of Portimão, and I am the European Museum Forum administrator. And I'm here because, well, let's go back to 2018, when the European Museum Forum established a partnership with the Portimão municipality in order to host the office and the archive of EMYA and EMF in Portimão, to create the House of EMYA, which is now based there. I'm the groundkeeper. Among one of the things that derived from that was the creation of the Portimão Museum Prize for Welcoming, Inclusion and Belonging. And among the main characteristics, the spirit of this prize is to have that the museum which is consecrated has a friendly atmosphere of inclusion. It respects and understands the physical environment that surrounds it, and especially the qualities, the human qualities, and the quality of its public program. Now, I have to do a disclaimer. I didn't been to the consecrated museum last year because I'm a Portuguese museum professional, so I can't afford traveling, I'm sorry. But I completely trust the opinion who has been there, and I was fortunate to get to know the people behind the project last year in Portimão. And one thing that you have to take in mention is, if you humbly love what you do, if you are respectful to what surrounds you, either people, either the environment, in terms of ecology, so to say, and it's particularly important on this context, it's most likely that when you create the visitor experience, when you open your doors, the visitor feels at home. And I think that's one of the great aims that we should have when we think about creating and maintaining a museum. And may I say that our good Nikos Kordozis and Despina Canelli have been achieving this back in Mesolongi, in a land that is marked by immense salt production for many years, not just being the part where Lord Byron dies, that's another story we don't mention here, and especially how it also respects the environment where it is created. I think all these part of welcoming, belonging, inclusion has been, from what I've learned so far and managed to speak with them, has been so well achieved. And on a very also nice generational transmission, you have Despina Canelli on the program, but instead we will have their daughter, Dimitra Carezzo, to present. So, dando as boas-vindas a este palco, welcome to the stage. Please welcome Dimitra Carezzo to show you the Portimão Museum Prize of 2024.
Thank you, Pedro, for the warm introduction. Sorry. Dear friends, You cannot imagine how happy we feel today to be here among you. How wonderful our time has been enjoying the hospitality of the Sybir Museum, this beautiful city, the delicious cuisine we tasted, and above all, the amazing people we met. Even more so, because through this year's event, we learned about the new museums participating in the competition, your museums, which are so inspiring, innovative, modern, classical, contemporary, and all share one common denominator: love. Love for the museum itself, for the exhibits, for the presentation, but above all, love for the audience. I truly believe that a successful museum welcomes its visitors with the biggest smile, turning them into its best friends and strongest supporters. It's no coincidence that our museum, the Salt Museum, was awarded the Portimao Museum Prize for Welcoming, Inclusion and Belonging, which, as EMF says, is sponsored by the municipality of Portimao and celebrates a friendly atmosphere of inclusion where all elements of the museum, its physical environment, its human qualities, its displays and public programs contribute to making everyone feel they're valued, respected and belong in the museum. 1 year ago, our museum was in your position as a nominee, completely unaware of what was to come. When our national representative, Mr. Yannis Markakis, first suggested we participate in the EMYA competition, we thought it would be interesting to join an international event, just to observe the process. We had no expectation of receiving any distinction. Then came the visit from the judge who won our hearts. We felt like we had made a wonderful new friend, someone whose knowledge and genuine interest truly amazed us. But still, we kept our expectations grounded, no illusions. Because, as the poet Cavafy says, keep Ithaca always in your mind. Arriving there is what you're destined for, but do not hurry the journey at all. Better if it lasts for years, so you're old by the time you reach the island, wealthy with all you have gained on the way, not expecting Ithaca to make you rich. And so it was for us. We became rich through our journey with the EMYA Awards. We were filled with new knowledge, experiences, and emotions. We had the chance to speak the same language with people from all over Europe, to learn from their achievements and be inspired by their visions. It was the ultimate celebration of culture, everyone simply happy to be part of it. And then came the unimaginable joy of being honored. But now let me introduce you to our museum through the video we prepared last year for the participation in the competition.
Here, in this marvel of nature, is produced the best salt all over Greece, which is called Afrina. Afrina comes from the foam of the sea, like Venus, the goddess of beauty and love.
Όλα ξεκίνησαν από μια έκθεση με τον τίτλο «Αλάτι ο Λευκός Θησαυρός» που πραγματοποιήθηκε το 2010 στο Ιστορικό Μουσείο Διέξοδος της Ιερής Πόλης του Μοσοβιλίου. Σε ένα μουσείο που ανήκει στον ομώνυμο κοινοφελή πολιτιστικό οργανισμό με 25ετή δράση, το οποίο παράλληλα με την διατήρηση της ιστορικής μνήμης δημιουργεί νέα κουλτούρα με τις εκδηλώσεις που διοργανώνει. Αποτέλεσμα της τεράστιας επιτυχίας που είχε η έκθεση αυτή, δημιούργησε την ανάγκη ίδρυσης του Μουσείου Άλαμος.
Lord Byron gave his life for this beautiful small town of western Greece. It is surrounded by the crystal waters of the famous lagoon, which is known for its diversity of flora and fauna. It talks about the creation of salt on earth 3 to 4 million years ago. It refers to its sources of origin, presents colored salts from 40 countries of the world, informs us about the way it is cultivated and harvested, about its effect on Earth, about the relationship to language, art and tourism, describes the salt roads, explains its relationship between religion and the environment, and finally discloses its 14,000 uses. We host thousands of students and organize educational programs, visual and musical events, book presentations, theatrical performances, stargazing, bird watching, seminars, cooking demonstrations, and sea races.
Είναι μεγάλη η χαρά μας όταν οι επισκέπτες φεύγουν ενθουσιασμένοι, γιατί το μουσείο έχει να πει κάτι στον καθένα από αυτούς. Όμως ποτέ δεν σταματάμε. Στοχεύουμε στην διαρκή εξέλιξη του Μουσείου Άλατος και γι' αυτό το λόγο μπορούμε να χαμογελάμε. Είμαστε γεμάτοι από όνειρα που σιγά σιγά πραγματοποιούνται και σας θέλουμε μαζί μας συνοδοιπόρους σε αυτό το υπέροχο ταξίδι.
Thank you. At our museum, visitors can learn everything about salt, when it first appeared on our planet, how it is produced, its many shades and colors, how it is processed, its 14,000 uses, and its influence on language, economy, the environment, art, literature, tradition, poetry, world religions, and even folklore and beliefs. The tour concludes in a unique room featuring 1,500 salt shakers made from various materials collected from different countries, each with its own story and value. Naturally, you may be wondering what the impact of receiving the Portimao Prize has been. I would say that one of the first things that changed was our self-image. We stood a little taller, but we did not become arrogant or self-important. Quite the opposite. We realized that our strength lies in the many human souls behind the museum, and we owe it to them to remain true to their expectations. And who were these people? They were the residents of our town, Messolongi, who stood by us every step of the way. They proudly say, "It's our museum." One of the most moving moments was when one of our fellow citizens, living in deep poverty, organized an informal celebration to honor us. With what little he had, he bought a cake, soft drinks, and small gifts for each member of the museum staff to thank us for putting Messolongi on the map in Europe. In a more official gesture, the region of Western Greece held an honorary evening for the museum's founder, Nikos Kordosis. Then there are our visitors who gave us the highest ratings on Google, TripAdvisor, and across all social media platforms. They were the ones who spread the word about our museum, one person at a time, and became part of our extended family. They joined our events and offered whatever they could: a salt shaker, a piece of salt from a faraway country, a book, a kind word. And of course, the women who make up our team, besides myself, Despina Kaneli and Nikos Kordosis, Ioanna Thodori, Vasya Paspaliari, and Fani Tsirogianni, who give their hearts every day to share our love for salt and ensure that every visitor becomes part of the experience we offer. Allow me to mention two more distinctions, one at the national level. The Salt Museum was honored by the Academy of Athens for the transmission of valuable knowledge about salt and the brilliant preservation of the region's industrial heritage. This most prestigious award was received by Nikos Kordosis in a ceremony led by the president of the Academy, Stamatis Kremezis, in the presence of hundreds of intellectuals, ministers, representatives of the church, university scholars, and ambassadors. The other distinction came from the University of Leicester, which presented us with the Activist Award, one of its 2 international awards. As you can imagine, the way of these honors is significant, and as I mentioned earlier, we deeply feel the responsibility to give back by continuing to serve with meaningful work and dedication. So, what did we do to help our museum evolve? We initiated a series of collaborations and projects aimed at improving not only the image of the museum, but also its services, and more importantly, its impact on the environment and society. The museum is located within the Mesolongi Lagoon, a protected area under the Natura 2000 and Ramsar Conventions. It is home to 297 different bird species, a variety of halophyte plants, and an incredibly unique ecosystem formed by the region's extreme salinity. Everyone knows about flamingos. In recent years, we have welcomed permanent populations of these magnificent birds, and this is due to the rising temperatures. Of course, some new species of birds and fish have begun appearing in our region, but unfortunately, many others are rapidly declining due to causes we all are aware of: pollution, hunting, and overfishing. We try to be as non-intrusive to the environment as possible. For example, we prohibit access to areas of the salt pans that serve as nesting grounds for birds, at least during their breeding season. We're planning to develop new ways of engaging with the public. In collaboration with the Hellenic Open University, we aim to create a virtual environment where visitors can participate in the salt production and harvesting process through virtual reality. We also plan to establish a lab for the cultivation of Artemia salina, a small shrimp native to salt pans, with the support of the Department of Ichthyology at the University of Patras. Additionally, we're creating a microscopy lab where visitors will be able to observe the crystallization process and detect pollution factors in seawater and salt. This lab will support new educational programs being developed by the departments of chemistry of the University of Patras, covering a wide range of topics. I keep referring to these 2 universities because they're located in Patras, the largest major city, with the nearest major city with such academic institutions. However, we have also initiated collaborations with the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki and the National Technical University of Athens, focusing on the study of oxidation and the preservation of materials affected by pollution and corrosive substances. Through our collaboration with scientific institutions and universities, we aim to develop innovative solutions that contribute to the sustainability of salt production and the protection of the environment. For example, we're exploring the use of renewable energy sources and the development of technologies for better water resource management within the salt flats. We are already studying the restoration of an old rainwater collection tank located on site, which would allow us to collect larger quantities of water to be used for irrigation and cleaning purposes. The Salt Museum has also taken initiatives to prevent and respond to crises that may arise from extreme weather events. As part of this effort, we're participating in research programs focused on monitoring and analyzing the impacts of climate change on salt marshes. Now, I fear I may have veered into overly technical territory and risk tiring you out, but my mention of all this comes from a place of deep pride in how the museum has grown in directions we could never have imagined. I want to emphasize that our collaboration with these institutions became significantly easier after receiving the award. It was as if a spotlight had suddenly been turned on us, and we became visible to everyone. We sincerely thank the EMYA for that. The importance of inclusion and accessibility for all visitors is vital. A museum must be accessible and welcoming to everyone, regardless of age, gender, nationality, or ability. Inclusion is a core principle of our philosophy. For this reason, we strive to welcome visitors in a way that makes them feel comfortable and valued. To achieve this goal, we have adapted our facilities to be fully accessible to people with mobility impairments. We also offer special guided tours and educational programs tailored for visitors with different needs, including braille captions and electronic audio guides available in 4 different languages. We have even built a replica salt flat so that visitors unable to physically access the salt flats can still touch the salt as it is being produced. Friendliness and accessibility are vital to fulfilling our cultural visions. I should also add that we are pet-friendly, allowing beloved animal companions to enter the museum, providing the minimum care they need, such as water, snacks, and waste bags. We have learned a lot from this journey, but above all, that nothing can be achieved without passion and unconditional love. Love for one's work, for the visitors, and for our homeland. Thank you all for your attention.
I'm still not going to sing, so you're safe. Do you want to come on to the stage? If you just take your seat. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here this afternoon. I'm Zandra Yeaman. I'm one of the EMYA judges, and I'm honoured to chair this panel. There has been a slight change to the programme, so instead of 4 panel organisations, we're down to 3, but we're bringing together colleagues from art and sculpture museums to explore how museums are re-examining the legacies and history of their collections and placing those narratives at the core of their ongoing mission. Now, across many of our museums and institutions, whether focused on art or 3-dimensional works in bronze, marble, wood, or mixed media, we are grappling with the questions about how objects and artworks came to us, what stories have been privileged, and whose voices have been left out. How decisions are being made acquiring new pieces of work or contemporary art. For many of our museums, the act of collecting has historically been framed around the aesthetics or even institutional prestige. Today, however, museums are increasingly challenged to confront the broader social, political, and ethical dimensions of how these works were acquired and how we interpret them. And this includes legacies of colonialism, of war, market manipulation, and systemic exclusion. Art and sculpture collections present distinct yet overlapping challenges, provenance gaps, cultural dislocation, and contested ownership are common threads. At the same time, these collections also offer powerful opportunities for us to recontextualise canonical works, to recentre historically marginalised voices, and to build trust through transparency and through dialogue. I'm really pleased to introduce 3 very cool directors. Diego is from the Sainsbury Museum in Norwich. We have Canan from the İzbank Museum of Paint and Sculpture in Istanbul, Turkey. And finally, we have Saskia from Museum Arnhem in the Netherlands.
Fantastic. Absolutely lovely to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. Absolute pleasure to be with so many amazing museum professionals. So I work at the Sainsbury Centre, which is an art museum located in the east of England. We have a phenomenal collection of thousands of work of art spanning 4,000 years, covering many parts of the world from the Arctic to Aotearoa, and holding many of the household names that you'll be familiar with, from Modigliani to Giacometti to Leonora Carrington. But as a museum, what I'm really interested in is like the future of museums. And from my perspective as a director, the way I see museums is that we play a vital role in how society is going to face an extremely uncertain future. I think that our species does have some pretty existential problems, and I think that museums play a vital role in helping society address them. But in order to do that, I feel like the museum has to break the historical paradigm by which it exists. Like society's changed, and the museum model needs to change too. So at the Sainsbury Centre, we've been on a pretty epic journey to try and break the museum model itself. So I've worked in museums my entire life, and every museum I've worked in, from the British Museum to small little community museums in Cuba, the museum model is that we have a collection, and that collection has to be cared for and then communicated out into the world, and the public benefit from getting access to that collection. But that has a number of problems with it as a model, which I can explain another time. So what I was interested in at the Sainsbury Centre was creating a fundamentally different museum model as a starting point. So at the Sainsbury Centre, we've taken a very different journey. For us, there is something totally unique about humans that we really can't quite put our finger on. Within each and every one of us is this sort of entity that it lives within our human bodies. And as children, we start to realize this sort of spark of life force that creates our own identities. And we get good at meeting other human beings and interacting with them and creating our value systems through those relationships. But often it's an unspoken form of communication. For me, great artists, makers and creators are people who have an ability to channel that raw aspect of human life force, and in the case of visual arts, they can physically materialize it. And at that moment, it becomes animate. It becomes like a living entity. So in 2023, we became the first museum that I know of in the world to understand our collection as being alive, as being living entities. And we changed our governance structure, so the job of the museum and everyone who works there is no longer to preserve, protect and communicate the collection. It is to give these living entities their best lives. That is the primary directive. Once you change the foundational principles of the museum, absolutely everything else about the museum changes, by both design and default. So our organizational structure, how we do programming, how the project people come to us for, and also, most importantly, the visitor experience. So when you enter the Sainsbury Centre, you're told on arrival, we understand the collection as being alive. You're here to meet it much more like you might another person than an inanimate object. You can choose between a digital, an analog, or just a purely experiential journey as you go round. But ultimately, we have a whole series of different ways for you genuinely to unlock yourself and meet art as a materialization of some of the most interesting people, political movements, different cultural perspectives that you could ever engage with. And what art is a materialization of that rawness of humanity, and great art is something that attracts that investment that you give your time to, and it will pay back to you in how you think about the world. And by doing it, it means that people can come into our museum now and explore the biggest questions that they have in their lives and find the inspiration, the intrigue, and the information to explore them. So you can lie underneath a Giacometti portrait and tell it a secret that you would never tell another human being. It just gives you a sense of that way that you can actually invest in art and trust art in a way that you can't with people. And actually, museums can be a place where you really do explore questions. So with our programming, we now no longer do exhibitions on art. We reach out to people around the world and ask them, what are the fundamental questions that you have in your life? And then we take 6 months, and at the museum, we create a whole series of different exhibitions that explore those questions. So in the last few years, we've done what is truth? How do I know what is true in the world? How do we save the planet from destruction? Why do we take drugs? And we're just about to open How do we stop people killing each other? And by activating art as a mechanism to explore these topics, it totally transforms the nature of the museum relationship, and it makes them a dynamic space where anyone can explore big problems, big questions, but do it in an open, warm and welcoming way with the inspiration at its core that is the collection that is then vibrant and alive. And that is what we do. Thanks very much.
I've woke up. I hope you've all woke up after that presentation.
Hello everyone. We are going to be watching a small clip from our museum.
Welcome to the İşbank Museum of Painting Sculpture, a gateway into Turkish art. Located on Istanbul's vibrant İstiklal Street, the museum blends history and creativity within the restored Bauduy apartment, originally built in 1907. Formerly an İşbank branch from the 50s to early 2000s, the building was transformed into a museum and opened on October 29, 2023, marking the Republic of Turkey's centennial. Founded 1 year after the Republic in 1924 under the directive of Ataturk, İşbank has always embodied a progressive vision. In the 1940s, the bank began collecting works by Turkish artists, both to preserve cultural heritage and support artists, ensuring their legacy for future generations. Today, the collection has grown into one of Turkey's most comprehensive private art collections, encompassing over 2,700 works by more than 950 artists. The permanent exhibition, Observing Turkish Art, provides an exceptional opportunity to explore the evolution of Turkish art. Showcasing nearly 400 masterpieces, the exhibition spans from the Ottoman period to contemporary works, offering a comprehensive narrative of Turkey's artistic evolution. The İşbank Museum of Painting Sculpture serves as a bridge between past and present, a living symbol of culture and shared history. More than just a museum, it celebrates Turkish art, paying tribute to the visionary ideals of the Republic and İşbank, while offering an open invitation to experience the transformative power of creativity. Discover the story of Turkey through the eyes of its artists, where the past comes to life and the future is shaped by creativity. Come explore the İşbank Museum of Painting Sculpture and embark on a journey through the captivating world of Turkish art.
Again, hello everyone. It's an honor to be standing here with you today. It was no coincidence that the İşbank Museum of Painting and Sculpture opened its doors as a gift to the Republic of Turkey on October 29, 2023, the very day the nation celebrated its 100th anniversary. This meaningful timing highlights the museum's role not only as a tribute to the Republic's founding ideals, but also as an act of remembrance and solidarity, honoring a century of cultural heritage, collective memory, and creative spirit. Over nearly 90 years, İşbank has built a collection of almost 2,700 works by more than 950 artists, preserving both key figures and the evolving story of Turkish art. The museum, the bank's third, opened with the permanent exhibition Observing Turkish Art through the İşbank Art Collection. Through this exhibition, a new narrative of Turkish art has emerged, bringing forward artists long overlooked in dominant art historical discourse, including many women artists. To truly understand this commitment, we must return to the early years of the Republic. After years of war and hardship, securing economic independence became one of the young republic's most urgent goals. As our founding leader Mustafa Kemal Atatürk famously declared, political and military victories, no matter how great, cannot be lasting unless crowned by economic victories. With this vision, İşbank was founded in 1924 by Atatürk's directive and under Celal Bayar's leadership. Often called the Republic's younger sibling, İşbank quickly grew beyond banking, contributing to Turkey's economic, cultural, and social development. In 1939, the bank made its first art acquisitions, 3 paintings from the first state exhibition, marking the beginning of a purposeful and lasting collecting tradition. In the decades that followed, artworks from this growing collection were displayed in branches across the country, bringing Turkish art into everyday public life. Long before the idea of a museum, İşbank's branches quietly became powerful bridges between art and society, integrating culture into the daily rhythms of communities across Turkey. From the very beginning, collecting was never just about accumulation. It was about preservation, connection, sharing art with the public. Today, we as a museum reimagine this mission. We're not just a static archive, but as a space for learning, dialogue, and shared memory. But more than that, we carry forward a tradition of remembrance and solidarity, a remembrance of the ideals that shaped our republic, and a solidarity that continues to unite generations through art, culture, and collective heritage. Thank you.
Yes, hello everybody. On behalf of the team of Museum Arnhem and my colleague Johanna Mindrop, she's also here, thank you for inviting us. It's an honor to be here and it's very inspiring. This was Museum Arnhem before a major renovation and expansion. The museum was too small, the climate was not right. The museum building looked introverted and not welcoming. It was a little bit like this. And the public facilities were substandard. And yesterday we learned that the coffee and even the toilets have to be very good, and that was not the case. We reopened our museum in 2022, and I will give you a brief impression of the museum today. What you see here is the open sculpture garden where we combine nature and art, and you don't need to buy a ticket. There's a new wing with exhibition rooms, and there are welcoming facilities for the public. And very important, the exhibition rooms were well equipped. But the most important thing was that the extension went together with the renewal of the museum concept and policy. Museum Arnhem has always a special position in the Netherlands. For over 40 years, the museum has collected and presented work by female artists. Nowadays, more than 65% of the contemporary art collection. And we are also collecting work of art from artists with diverse cultural backgrounds. But the problem of the museum was that the mission was not clear anymore, and the museum didn't reach new visitors. And that was about language, that was about the way of presenting the art. It was all about art history in the museum and not about the content. So our task was to make a museum much more accessible and relevant for the audience of the future, younger and more diverse. And I'd like to show you the video we made for this conference, then you can see what is the museum now.
Museum Arnhem is een museum voor moderne en hedendaagse kunst. En ons grote thema is kunst en samenleving. En we proberen de kunst en thema's die actueel zijn in de samenleving met elkaar te verbinden. En wat we heel erg belangrijk vinden is een relevant museum zijn voor het publiek van de toekomst. En dat doen we bijvoorbeeld door publiek wat zich nog niet in ons museum herkent te vragen: wat heb jij nou nodig van een museum? Wat verwacht jij nu van een museum? En met die publieken maken we samen tentoonstellingen. En een mooi voorbeeld was de tentoonstelling How Dare You Make Me Feel This Way. En een project wat we afgelopen jaar gedaan hebben met de hip-hop community in Arnhem. En het leuke is dat de mensen die regulier in het museum komen en van de kunst willen genieten, dat soort tentoonstellingen ook heel interessant vinden. Dus het beste uit twee werelden.
So, and now we have some more slides. Yeah, we now have 40 more visitors than before, and we made connection with new visitor groups, and they are coming to the museum and like to cooperate with us. So, we are very happy with it. But we also started to involve them in our collection development, like this work by Leo Faux, which was a proposal from the trans and the queer community. We worked together with them. And in the panel discussion, we will talk further about redefining collections. So for now, thank you.
Thank you. Now, audience, please remember you have the Slido, so if there's any questions, if you've got a burning question that you want to ask this panel or learn from, please add it to the Slido. So I'm going to start with thank you all for that presentation. This time in the afternoon can be very low, very tiring, but you woke us all up there, so much appreciated for that. I'm going to start with you, Diego. And this links to a question from the audiences also. You talk about collections being alive and activating art. And what I was interested in is you talking about changing governance and the whole structure of, you know, the idea of your museum. Can you tell us what the biggest challenge in doing that was and getting everybody in your museum on board? And how did you manage to get there? Because we want to all learn from that.
I think the biggest challenge was everyone realizing that we actually were going to do this. I think that when I started as a director 4 years ago, everyone thought that like every museum has a vision, you know, and if we just keep our heads down, it'll just go away. And then you had to sort of like get the momentum going. My God, this really is actually going to happen. So I started doing a few things which were slightly odd, and that really got people understanding. And then I don't think it is difficult to do something radical, because basically everyone who works in a museum does it because they want to do interesting things and be creative and be amazing, and they don't do it for the salary. And therefore, if you give them an opportunity to actually do something genuinely creative and genuinely different, then they really want to do it. So the key thing I did was I just said yes to every single person who had an idea related to the concept of living art. I would just say yes, and then the ideas just kept getting sort of more and more radical and out there. And I was just saying, yes, let's do it. Let's take a work out of the museum. Let's allow people to touch things. Let's allow different stakeholders to come in here and actually work with them in totally different ways. And if you say yes, then that's empowering, and that provides a positive feedback loop of change. And then people start getting excited about it, and then things are good, and then more people want to do things. So I think that that's good. It's just releasing the sort of creative power of the museum professional, really.
And how have you dealt with any pushback, though? Because not everybody comes all at once, do they?
So there wasn't, honestly, there was not been nearly as much pushback as I want. What there was a lot of doubt. So it took us a year to change the governance structure, and then another year to get ready for the relaunch, where we announced publicly that we understood the collection as alive. And like the staff, like I think a lot of people were like, oh my God, this really might not, including me, was like, this really might not work, right? The people might just like think you're trying to create a night in the museum and be stupid, or like, you know, it just might not work. So there was quite a lot of doubt and a lot of people sort of hedging their bets, including my board, and they were giving them sort of get out of jail free cards where they could fire me if it didn't work. But then like after the launch, it went well, and we got really good press, and our visitors went up by 40%, and then the revenue started going up massively, and then everyone wants to be part of a success story, and then everyone's on board. because they said that they were there before. And that's what happens. So luckily it worked. If it hadn't worked, I wouldn't be here.
Oh, well, we're glad to have you here. And Janan, I was interested in what you were talking about, where in your museum there's such a legacy, you know, over 90 years of artworks, Turkish artists, and I'm curious to know, how do you manage to, you know, we had this conversation earlier about art museums not always being places where people feel welcome, or spaces for everyone. How are you getting over those kind of hurdles, and what kind of projects are you doing that is fostering inclusion, but not just as one-off projects, like sustaining?
First of all, our building, as I was mentioning to you before, used to be an apartment. And it was built in 1907. And it was an İşbank branch until 1950s. And then it went on to a restoration project in 2016. And we opened, as I said, in 2023. So once you enter our building, it feels like a home, because it used to be an apartment building. And when we were talking with our curator, we always said we want to make this into a place where it's for everyone. And I think through just putting on panels, information that are easy to understand for any age group, or either art historians or a person who has never been into an art museum before, to really truly understand Turkish art. And I think just through our educational programs, and we have a multi-purpose hall named Black Box in our museum, and we host many different academics, journalists, and we start having dialogues not just on the artworks, but around the museum. So just making art for everyone was our motto, and I think our building is also a great platform for that, because it just feels homey, and that adds to the visitors that are, because many people, they walk into an art museum and they feel like, you know, it's a huge space and they shouldn't, you know, there are certain rules and they feel overwhelmed sometimes. But in our museum, I think just people walking in feel at home already.
Yes, that moment of walking into a space, actually, and how welcoming that space feels, has a huge impact on that visitor experience, doesn't it? And I'm going to elaborate from one of the questions from the audience, because it links to what you have just been discussing. And the question really is, thinking about what you said about art for everyone, part of your mission is privileging previously overlooked or underrepresented artists. So how are you addressing that?
In our collection, we have, as I said, more than 2,700 works by over 950 artists. But there are still gaps in the collection. And after our museum opened, we have acquired many paintings, especially from female artists, that were missing in our story, like Miss Mihri Hanım, and she's a founding artist in Turkish art history. And also the bank acquired artists of the time. So we're right now acquiring works from contemporary artists as well, mostly female artists that were missing in many countries' art history, not just Turkish art in particular, but we're giving a special place for female artists.
Woohoo! As Leontina
Our director is a woman, I'm a woman, our curator is a woman, the whole team is female, except Furkan.
We're taking over.
But yes, female artists that were pushed aside or were under the shadows of their husbands, which were artists. And now we're going to be putting them up in our next exhibition as well.
Great. Saskia, got one for you that I was thinking about. Thank you for your presentation. I was kind of thinking about in what way has your museum changed its collecting practice. You were just thinking about gender. You said that was always something that your museum, did privilege. But in what way is your collecting practice kind of reflecting your commitment to inclusion?
Maybe I have to tell something about the history of the museum. Our museum started as many museums in the Netherlands with collection from wealthy people. They donated it to the local government, and there has to be a museum. So that was also in Arnhem. And later on, there were some directors who decided to collect modern art also. But in the 80s, there was an important director, and she was a woman, and she said, hey, there are so many women artists, but they are not in the museums, they are not in the galleries, they are not at Art Basel, etc., etc. So where are they? So she decided to collect women artists or female artists, and that's why we have a big contemporary art collection from women artists. But if you are looking at that way to your collection, you see that there are much more stories and much more artists which are not represented in your museum. So afterwards we decided to collect a work from art with different backgrounds. And now we are asking the public and the communities which we are working with, what kind of art is missing in our museum? Because you are coming to our museum, but then it's important to be represented in the museum. So now we are working with public to collect. And I think, and we only did the first steps, but I think that will be very interesting and exciting.
And how do you think the curators will deal with that, the public making the decision on what the museum correct?
They like it a lot because they are very engaged, and they also see we have we don't see everything, so they are very aware of the fact that they are also looking from their own point of view. So they are asking also to the public, but also to other artists or engaged groups, what is missing in our museum. And the role is a little bit changing, of course, because they are more advisors or researchers. They help to find good artists if somebody is telling we are missing this story, for example.
That's great. Art is so subjective though, isn't it? That it can be like, I mean, I work in a museum also, in an art gallery, and some of the artworks I absolutely love, and some I'm like, no, I don't like that at all. So it's quite a difficult, when you're trying to kind of be inclusive, and you've got so many kind of different ideas of who appreciates art, who's it for, who is art for. Now I have a question. And there's been a few in this theme and from the audience, and it is a theme that I'm very interested in, and it is part of what we said we would do in the panel. So we all have histories in our museums, and some of the legacies of that history can be rather uncomfortable. So this is a question for all of you. How have you looked at the historical background of some of your collection, the areas that might be, pretty complicated histories that we might not be proud of? How have you approached that within your museums now? So we'll start with you, Diego.
So before the relaunch, we did a massive provenance research project for the collection, Everything on Display. And then you can hold your phone up and it has automatic camera recognition and it will tell you when something was born and its life story. So it gives you a detailed biography of everything on display, which goes through some of the details of how contested objects have appeared and why they have been, or where they are. So that gives you like an ability to learn about the biography. Then we have something called sharing stories, where you choose which voice of the artwork you want to hear from. So you can either hear from an artist practitioner, maker perspective on the artwork, or you can hear from sort of an indigenous leader, knowledge keeper, someone who's got the authority to speak about the artwork, about why it's important, or you can hear from lived experience of the artwork. So there are three different voices, all trying to give different voices to different sides of the artwork and its life force. And that provides a huge opportunity for totally different and diverse voices talking through the materiality in the museum. So that reaches out across the world. There's like people, we have llama herders talking about llama, we have children talking about Lake Ikamura, we have Yinka-Shonbari talking about Yinka-Shonbari, we have spoken word poets, we have a complete diversity of voices that comes through that allows that storytelling mechanism to talk through those contested histories in different ways. But it's always an ongoing journey and it's always interesting. And then we've got an interesting one which I'm really interested in at the moment, which is, so we have Benin bronzes in the collection, which are highly contested and very topical subjects. And so we worked with an artist, Rashad Newsom, in order to create an AI model which was harvesting Nigerian and West African literature and create a circumscribed large language model. And then we created a hologram in the museum next to the Benin bronze, and this was part of our What is Truth season. And you went in and you could talk to the Benin bronze hologram about like where it wanted to be, why it was there, why it wanted to go back to Benin City, and then it would respond using the AI large language model and give you the response. And the whole point was like, this isn't right. This isn't a correct answer. It's not actually talking, but this is a lot better than a white curator telling you what it should be doing. So it's talking about the contested nature of who speaks on behalf of a living entity which doesn't have a mouth. And that, I think, is really interesting because it plays through how you debate these topics in interesting ways and draw on different sources of information.
Or you could repatriate the Benin bronze. I'm sure even in AI, it probably says, I want to go home. I should have also added, thinking about this question, also thinking about the donors. So it's not only the actual object, artwork, painting, it's also who's donated it.
I think our museum differs in this sense because painting and sculpture came later to Turkey than its European counterpart. So our collection starts from late Ottoman to current days. And so because painting and sculpture came later to Turkey, I don't think it has such a background compared to the European art, or in a sense to like colonialism, what they were talking in panels before. But with us, I think when we were talking about the curation, our founding curator, Gül İrepolo, she picked artists that were not really known in Turkish art history or were pushed like to the back just because maybe they weren't from the academy or they weren't classically trained. So instead of just putting the famous names up on the walls, we picked artists that were not really known, that were not written about in many art historical texts. And we try to put those artists at the same level as the ones that are famously known. So I think that in this sense, I can answer that question in this way, because we do differ from the European painting and sculpture ideology. So
you're challenging the kind of Western idea of the art canon by creating that kind of equity?
Because all of these artists did have a voice in this journey of Turkish art history. So we wanted to give them that space because they do deserve that space.
Saskia, do you still remember the question? No. I was really thinking about the legacies of the artwork, how you deal with the legacy, the contested histories, who donates it, the provenance,
Yes, I think our collection doesn't have very big questions with legacy. Some of the subjects or some of the objects are dealing with slavery, and we are researching it. But the main collection doesn't have a lot of problems with legacy, but what we are doing is all the time talking about representation. So what has to be in our collection? Why is art history written like this? There are many point of views which were not in the books. For example, the history of female artists. Last year we made an exhibition with Belvedere in Vienna and Museum Saarland in Saarbrücken about women artists in modernism. And there were so many women artists who are not in the history books, but they were very important in their own time. So if you go to the resources in modernism, there are so much more artists than you see in the museums and in the history books, for example. So we are all the time questioning the canon, the books, our collection. And we don't have, we are only making exhibition also with the collection. And I think that's important because then you all the time you have to ask, to ask questions about your collection. And if you make a presentation for 7 or 10 years, it's a huge effort, but then it will be frozen. And for us, it's important to ask the questions all the time.
And I suppose you talk a lot about gender in your collection, and do you take an intersectional approach to that? Could you maybe share that with the audience?
Yes, we do that a lot of times. For example, in the exhibition, How Dare You Make Me Feel This Way, that was not made by our curators, but that was made by the trans and the queer community, and we helped them to make the exhibition, but they did it completely by themselves. And that was, for us, it was very exciting, and it was also a rich resource for us because they questioned our collection. So that was very important for us also because we are always looking at it every day, and now there were people who were asking other questions, and a lot of them were intersexual. So for us now it's normal to bring that point of view in all our exhibitions. So that's why we are working a lot with communities so that we can learn from them and know what's important for the next exhibition. And it's also important that we stay in contact with them because it's very strange if you ask them something and then the project is over and you say thank you and then it's over. So we are working on longer relations with them and strong relations.
You want to embed that practice and not have it as a one-off project and sustain those relationships. And I suppose this brings me to think about, and this links to a question from the audience, but I'm going to play around with the question a little. The impact, you know, you've all talked about this paradigm shift, this change, and you know, your approach within your museums, and it would be good to know, or for you to share with us all, the change in the audiences that come and visit your spaces. And we don't just mean like, you know how I always think museums are like accountants, you know, the numbers, but actually what impact has it had with the audiences, and have you found that there has been more people visiting your museums who are historically underrepresented or not you know, your usual visitors? So, Janet, do you want to start with the answer to that?
Yeah, sure. We started at the beginning of our museum exhibition a program called Guest of the Month. And we bring one artwork from our storage every month, and we put it in different rooms in the museum. And now we have people that are waiting for this guest of the month. This is a way to share our collection with the public, and we try to pick artworks that are, let's say, that were not shown before, or a unique artwork of a certain artists that we were not able to put into our exhibition. We create a space for them. So now there are people that are waiting who are willing to learn about the different artists and these unique artworks. So they can be scholars of art history. There are many students in different fields that are looking forward for the guest of the month. And also we have really a department for educational programs. So school children are very important for our museum. So we have workshops just directed for them. And there are people who have never been in touch with any artworks before. They're coming in and they're pleasantly surprised, and they're asking, when are the next exhibitions, or how can we learn more information? And I think it's because we're also on Istiklal Street, which is one of the main hubs in Istanbul. People who are foreigners, tourists, are just walking in, who have no idea about maybe Turkish art, and they learn something. So it's actually such a diverse group of people that are, coming and experiencing the museum, and they, I think, each find something that they're drawn to. Like you said before about artworks, some of them, I enjoy, and some of them I don't understand. So I think there's an artwork or a space for everyone.
It's something that actually people
something. And
feel
I
an
think
emotion.
This Guest of the Month program is a nice way to, keep the public guessing also what's coming up next.
Saskia, can you share?
Yes. What we see now is that new groups of visitors are coming to the museum, so we are very happy with that. But also that they are different. They don't want to be only a visitor, they want to be a participant. And I think that's very important because then you are working together, and then you are building a longer relation with them. And I think that is what you have to do as a museum. You have to make impact. And you have to work on that relation. So we are now learning to make our exhibitions on a different way. We changed a lot, the language we use. It's not about art history anymore. Of course there's art history, but it's for us, and it's for people who like it, but they know it. So if you are public, you are not coming for art history, you are coming for the content of the artworks, or what they represent, or stories which the artworks are telling. And so we are working on different ways with working with public, so that we can...
Yeah, and co-creation and co-production actually enables ownership.
Yes.
Hugo, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I mean, yes, so our visitors are all up, and I think that what we've done really well with is a lot of people who come to our museum now wouldn't describe themselves as people who like art or like art museums, or wouldn't consider themselves to be an art museum person. They're coming because they're interested in the questions that are being posed, and they know about the question, or they're interested in the question. But I think that museums have a challenge, particularly art museums, of like behaviours within a museum. Like when you go to an art museum, you're not quite sure what to do. Like you really think like you've got to look serious and sort of stroke your chin and look knowledgeable and then read a label and then move on. And by having lots of things happening in the museum which are quite unusual and kooky, like people hugging Henry Moore sculptures or dancing with ceramic dancers or listening to soundtracks and putting headphones on, like once you get a threshold of people doing different things in a museum space, it allows other people who don't know, may not feel comfortable going in there, to feel like there's no right or wrong. Like I can just wander around here and be odd and do different things, and that's very empowering for people. So if you get a certain threshold of people who come into the museum who wouldn't normally consider themselves museum people, find an environment which is quite odd and different and things happening, then that's really important, I think. And I think that was a key thing getting over. And then also we changed our payment system, so it's only pay if and what you want, either on your way in or on your way out of the museum. And that way it's quite open for people who can come and enjoy all of the temporary exhibitions you can access for free if you want to. So it means you can get quite innovative content and not have to pay if you don't want to.
Well, we've run out of time. I could sit here all day with you and keep talking. Now you know who these people are. I couldn't pick up all your questions on the Slido, so please go and speak to them over coffee or even tonight at the gala if you've got that burning question and you want to hear the answer. So please thank our panellists.
Thank you, everyone. And the last panel for today. My name is Adriana Muñoz, and I am EMYA judge. And I want to introduce 4 different museums, but at the same time surprisingly connected. Museums are no longer silent containers of the past. Today, we are active participants in shaping historical consciousness, revealing how histories are told, whose voices are heard, and which perspectives are included or excluded in many times. Our 4 presenters today come from museums that engage with layered, contested, and sometimes submerged histories, from royal palace to religious reform, regional memory to underwater archaeology. As we listen to the presentations, I invite you to think not only about the content they preserve, but how the techniques, the tensions, the innovations that allow history to become an open conversation with the present. Please come up. I want to introduce Annette de Vries, please, from the Het Loot Palace in Apeldoorn, the Netherlands. Please come in. Marie-Anne Garin from the Savoie Museum Chambéry, France. Jean-Quentin Hefliger from the Reformation Museum in Geneva, Switzerland. And Han de Savage from the Underwater Archaeological Museum in Bodrum, Turkey. Please sit.
Thank you so much, EMYA, for the kind invitation to have a presentation here about Paleis het Loo at this inspiring conference. I would like to start with a short introduction film. First of all, there are 5 facts and figures you should know about Paleis het Loo. Paleis het Loo is a Baroque palace and garden founded at the end of the 17th century by stadtholder King William III and Mary Stuart II. It was a summer residence of the House Orange-Nassau family and used until the 1970s. It opened as a state-funded national museum in 1984. From 2018 till 2023, the historical palace was renovated and restored, and a new museum was added underground, about 5,000 square meters, with room for permanent exhibitions, temporary exhibitions, and of course a lot of visitors' facilities. Last year, we welcomed 420,000 visitors. We have a team of around 300 employees and 150 volunteers. When you walk through the historical palace and gardens, your eyes constantly encounter changing perspectives. From one room to the other, also depending on the time of day or the seasons. From a bird's perspective on the roof to the typical symmetrical outlines of palace and gardens. From an overview to the smallest details. From new to old architecture. Changing perspectives. It is a useful metaphor for what Paleis het Loo stands for. Keeping our heritage alive and relevant by programming, presenting and researching it from ever-changing perspectives. A few examples. We like to bring contemporary art into our museum because it stimulates a dialogue between old and new. Here you see the Baroque-looking sculptures of the artist Heringa van Kalsbeek during our Winter Palace last year. We use artificial intelligence to create attractive imagery for example, marketing. Next spring, we will open an exhibition, State of Wonder. There are 12 artists who, after a long research period at Paleis het Loo, developed some artworks and will produce them. And they are site-specific and will be shown outside the palace, but also inside the palace. And the last one, the Andy Warhol Reigning Queens exhibition. The complete series is in our collection. And that's, of course, an exhibition that's about women's voices. We are also relevant, and this is a good example of that, in Focus exhibition about the colonial cabinet in our collection. And we presented it from 5 perspectives, from art historical, anthropological, colonial, and abolitionist perspectives. And now we have today the exhibition Counterplay, A Century of Female Monarchs. It's an exhibition we present on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the United Nations International Women's Year. We strengthen inclusion and social responsibility as a museum. A short impression. Our Princess and Princesses event for families with young children during summer. Our festive Winter Palace in and outside the palace every year. The opening of a Changing Places facility. And right, you see a breakfast for the community of Apeldoorn on behalf of the 80th anniversary of our freedom since World War II this year. Left, you see a touching model of the palace and surroundings for visually disabled visitors and a sign language interpreter on the Palace app. And there is so much more to tell. Paleis het Loo believes that heritage is not static, but dynamic. We have to introduce new perspectives and create new narratives. Only by connecting our heritage to present-day visitors and discussions, we will be able to protect it for future generations. For everyone, forever, as the National Trust in the United Kingdom expresses so well. For everyone, forever. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. It's strange to speak in English, but I will try to. I'm going to read. It's better. Okay, let's go. The Musée Savoisien was created in 1864 as a collection gathering archaeological, numismatic, and historical objects. From 1913, this collection found its home in a former Franciscan convent. In 2010, the Department of Savoie decided to renovate the museum with the desire to offer the inhabitants of Savoie and their visitors a permanent reference exhibition on the history of their region, which is not told elsewhere. During its renovation, the museum worked with numerous researchers, academics, collectors, enthusiasts, and local experts. The revamped Musée Savoisien opened in 2023. It highlights the unique geopolitical history of Savoie from a European perspective, revealing an evolving society in all its dynamism and diversity, including migration, urbanization, and industrialization. The museum's aim is not to present a straightforward history, but rather to explore richness, complexity, and tensions of past and present Savoyard society. The new permanent exhibition is based around the upper galleries of the cloister, with Power and Territory, this is the name of the section, from the first traces of human occupation to the present. The history of the states of Savoie, which were not a nation-state, is at the heart of this section, focusing neither on France nor on Italy, but on Savoie from a European perspective. For the contemporary issues, we approach climate change and the return of wolves, which highlights conflicts over land use. 6 thematic parts complete this chronological section. Population and movement shows dynamics of settlement, movement, and cultural exchange over time by exploring languages, routes, and migrations. Dress reveals the styles of getting dressed by the region's inhabitants from prehistory to current times. We worked with enthusiasts of regional costume, whether they be collectors, folk groups, or costume wearers. The third section, called Beliefs, shows the diversity of religions. Benefiting from a rich Catholic heritage, the museum has forged close links with Protestant, Muslim, Jewish, and Buddhist communities to update its collection while tackling atheism and agnosticism with a film on the secularization of society. The resource and food section approaches the diversity of Savoie's natural resources and the ways in which they have been and continue to be exploited. Moving on, Habitat immerses visitors in the diversity of architecture, from rural architecture to ski resort architecture. And finally, the Thebans area is devoted to medieval murals. The Musée Savoisien is not just a place for permanent and temporary exhibitions. It's above all a place for sharing, debating and having fun. Our aim is to make the museum experience accessible. That's why we propose pertinent and scientific comments, but with different media, including not only text and objects, but also maps, video games, animated cartoons, scale models and copies to touch, without forgetting guided tours and educational workshops. The Musée Savoisien pays particular attention to the needs of disabled visitors, especially the hearing impaired, given the presence of a large deaf community in Chambéry. The free admission to the museum encourages the local public to visit it regularly. Digital technology allows visitors to explore the online resources, such as the collections database. This resource provides access to around 80,000 objects. The renovation of the Musée Savoisien will be finished in November 2025 at the end of the construction of the new outsourced storeroom. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Are you still awake? Yes, cool. I think this is the best opportunity in my life to quote Martin Luther. Here I stand, and I cannot do other. I can do no other than telling you that behind the Reformation, and if you ask me, this is a Protestant Reformation, because some of you ask me, the Reformation of what? So this is a good opportunity to tell you that there is many good stories behind Reformation, behind the austerity, the iconoclasm that you maybe know. It's kind of a stereotype, but not only. So behind them, behind these stereotypes, you have important and very inspiring figures, as you are in Białystok during this meeting. Women, men, German people, Geneva, you recognize maybe some of them, Henri Dunant, Germaine de Staël, Aretha Franklin, Martin Luther, of course, and behind them you have different opportunities to tell the story of Reformation, this very important change in Europe. We are all European here. It affects all Europe in different ways, and that's also what we will discuss a bit later. Talking about my museum, so we can be happy walking in such a museum. It's possible because at least we have good colleagues. Also, during the Reformation of the museum, this is a museum of the Reformation, but during this transformation, we decided with my colleague to break the stereotypes, to create a scenography, a cheerful scenography, also colorful scenography. Talking about the history of the museum is very, very young. It's 20 years old, created in 2005. It's located in the core of the Geneva Old Town, in a very beautiful 300-year-old mansion, private mansion. Actually, we share the spaces with other people, but we pay the rent to the church, actually. That's not the opposite. Because we are secular, we are an historical museum, and that's very important for us to also to be sure that the people visiting the museum, they don't feel like they need to be Protestant at the end of the visit. We are a very small museum, 600 meters square, and of course, and this is also because of iconoclasm, we have just about 1,500 items in our collection, which is a big challenge for a museum when you don't have a lot of things, and also 3/4 of it's old books, to create a nice scenography and to be sure that people they will be happy with. Despite everything, since we reopened the museum in 2023, after 21 months of work, we gained 50% of visitors. So from 20,000 to 30,000, yeah. Still, Reformation, you know. So we still have. So we hope we win something, because then, like the Museum of Salt in Missalonghi, maybe it will be also cool for us. We have exhibition, we have temporary exhibition, we have mediation. I will show you some pictures later, but as you understand, we don't have much of images to fit the topic. And also, we wanted to create in our museum like a forum. So when the people, they visit the museum, the first thing they will find is welcoming. We have a very nice and very professional team for the welcoming. We also, as you can see here, host some conferences, debates, forum, movies, and it's important for us also to let place to the debate, because talking about theology, religion, and this important change, it's important that you come in this museum with your beliefs or with no beliefs, and then you can also tell the stories. So it's important also to have a guest book and to just share a bit with the people the stories. Some, they are Protestant, they want to find their roots. Some other, they are Catholics, and maybe they understand that, it's not that simple, that's the bad Protestant, the bad Catholic, or the opposite. And some other, they have no idea, so we need also to find another way to explain. We have also an association of the Friend of the Museum, old, retired people most of the time, who help as a volunteer in the museum. As you can see also, we use some cool mediation tools as a printing press. This is a replica, but of course it's important for Reformation to have this tool. Martin Luther would be nothing without a printing press, and that's also what we have. So the exhibition is called a History of Reformation. It's not that it's a subjective way to explain Reformation, but it's just that we are small, so we need to find a way to explain about a bit of everything. But of course, some people, they are like, you don't talk about the story of my grandfather, or you don't talk about the story of this country. We cannot talk about everything, but we try to have cool stories. So this is just some rooms. You can see that we have even some IBM computer, some basketball, some video rooms. We talk about different topics. Protestation, it's a topic who talks to the human of 2025. There is many ways to protest today. You can see then we talk about Red Cross as well, which is also related at some point with Protestantism and this type of beliefs. We have Bibles, of course, flying Bibles, butterflies. We have Martin Luther and John Calvin. That's the austerity. You know that in French, for the deaf people, Geneva, it's the city of Calvin, Geneva. Cool story, in fact. We talk about wars, because we have to, and because even if it's war from 16th century, tell us about also the massacre in our time. And we talk about migration, the migration of the Protestants. I don't want to be too much, I want to stay objective, but when people tell me that migration are a problem for countries, I just remember that Geneva is so famous for watches and banks. Who made it? I just remember that the Protestant refugee found a safe place to do it. We have music. This is also like, we are in a panel about history, but we also have on display some music and some psalms, and of course, we're talking about Aretha Franklin at some point. We have augmented reality. I don't have time anymore. Like the Protestant priests, they had 45 minutes to talk the Sunday morning. I have just 5. So we have augmented reality here, how to explain other story through paintings and engraving in the museum.
Welcome to the Church of the New Age.
ID here. Come to me after, I will show you. And in the temporary exhibition spaces, 150 meters square, we like to explain and to show different topics, not only Reformation, but social, interfaith dialogue, like also some very classic like Rembrandt in the Bible, or today we have also an exhibition about outsider heart and spirituality with this beautiful devil, voir l'invisible, to see the invisible. So, and you, what would you like to reform today? And what is something you would protest for? It's a very modern topic. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm here for the present Bodrum Underwater Archaeology Museum. The story of our museum begins with the world's first scientific underwater excavation. In 1960, a late Bronze Age shipwreck was excavated at Cape Gedidonia on Turkey's Mediterranean coast. The artifacts recovered were stored in Bodrum Castle, and by 1964, our museum was established within the castle itself. As underwater excavations in Turkish waters increased, so did the museum's collection. From the 1980s to the mid-2000s, the museum continued expanding with the new galleries, However, these were created in different styles, reflecting the museology of their time, and over the years, this fragmented structure no longer met visitor expectations and lacked a cohesive narrative. To address this, a comprehensive project was launched in 2017, covering both the restoration of Bodrum Castle and the renewal of all galleries, as well as the creation of new exhibition spaces. The project lasted 4 years, with the museum reopening in phases between June 2020 and May 2021. The museum is housed in Bodrum Castle, built in the early 15th century by the Knights of St. John. It still retains its original Gothic layout, along with reused architectural elements from ancient mausoleum of Halicarnassus. Later Ottoman additions include a bathhouse and a minaret. Due to this layered history, Bodrum Castle is listed on the UNESCO World Heritage tentative list. During the restoration, the modern additions to the castle, including concrete mortar and plasters, were removed. Here you see the phases of the restoration. And thanks to the archaeological excavations carried out, new spaces that were previously hidden were uncovered also. The renewed museum is structured around 3 themes: underwater archaeology, land excavations, and history of Bodrum Castle. Galleries were arranged in line with the castle's original plan. The model of the ship you are seeing in the photos, the model of the ship, which is built by the original wooden parts of the hull, were preserved in a new layout supported by graphic animation and the documentary video. It's before the renovation and after the renovation. Some examples of shipwrecks before renovation and after renovation. All right, same goes like this. Yes. During the restoration, the chapel, stripped of modern finishes and excavated, and revealing ancient remains and 13th century tombs, now displayed under glass flooring. Alongside the 7th century Byzantine rank, finds from late Roman and Ottoman wrecks from Yassada were also displayed in a new gallery with a ship-shaped case and interactive screens. A new gallery tells the history of underwater archaeology, including the first underwater excavation documentary videos, an aquarium diorama, digital games, and the exhibition of amphoras, which are key to understanding trade and shipwreck contexts. 6 new galleries opened featuring artifacts being exhibited for the first time. The showcase arrangements were designed to display the castle's original stone structure. Some galleries highlight land excavations by museum experts, including newly displayed finds from the necropolises around Bodrum Peninsula. Across the museum, technology and models were used to support, but not overshadow, original artifacts. Explanatory panels were written by excavation scholars using clear and accessible language. Outdoor spaces, approximately 30,000 square meters, is now accessible to visitors. This includes new open-air displays and rest areas. Wooden walkways and gravel paths improve navigation, conceal infrastructure, and assist with natural drainage. The gravel also allows plant growth and supports biodiversity within the site. All staff areas, offices, and storage rooms were also renovated, and the most important one is the museum's conservation lab, which is specializing in underwater finds, was expanded and upgraded. A new water treatment system and desalination pools were built to treat saltwater exposed artifacts, which is a critical step in underwater conservation. And nighttime visits began in June 2020, offering an alternative visitor experience during summer months. Since reopening, visitor numbers have doubled. And the castle's performance venue now hosts ballet, theater, and concerts annually. Temporary art exhibitions are also held within the castle galleries. And these are our collaborators. Our key collaborators include the Institute of Nautical Archaeology. Many of our shipwreck exhibits were made possible through Ayna-led excavations. And we also work with the Institute of Marine Sciences and Technology at 9 Eylül University. And of course, finally, George Bass, one of the pioneering figures in the founding of our museum, and also supported our latest renovation project. The History of Underwater Archaeology exhibition was prepared under his guidance, and he passed away shortly after the exhibition opened. And we remember him with respect and gratitude. And I will conclude my presentation with a short video if we have no time. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear? Yeah. I am going to try to be some democratic way, so I'm going to take first some questions from the audience. I have a couple of questions for you on the Reformation Museum, and the idea how you include non-Christian visitors, and in the times that we are living today, how your museum is handling with religious intolerance.
Thank you for the question. So, what is important? We have different type of visitors. We have more or less half of the visitors they are locals, and they can be Christian or not Christian. And we have also a lot of visitors from Korea, Brazil, other countries, and they are all Christian or not Christian. So what was very important at the beginning is to have a clear explanation about what is Christianism, because if I want to visit a museum of the Reformation, you need to have the basis. That's the first step. Then, in terms of integration, in terms of inclusivity, we have 14 languages, so we have this access. And what we want to explain, of course, it's a specific theology, a specific religion, it's Reformation. But we want to show some patterns. We want to see, okay, that's religious war, this is a specific situation, but just think out of the box. In other religions, you have differences, you have fights, you have wars, and let's speak about the Red Cross. There is a Red Cross museum in Geneva, very well done. The Red Cross started with Henri Dunant and other Protestant Geneva guys, because they wanted to have a very active way to be faithful and to read the Bible. So there is also the Red Crescent. There is also different movement. The humanitarianism is not something religious. So this is a first step. Then in the basement of the museum, we have also a lot of facilities, a lot of videos about protest. If we just think about Reformation, a German guy, 500 years ago, became a criminal. He was banned from the empire. He was expelled from the church, excommunicated, and now there is 1 billion of people following what he was saying, more or less. This is very inspiring, even if you don't believe specifically in the fact that in the Bible or the Christ. So that's, of course, a way to do it. We can always improve, but that's a way.
Thank you. One question for the Savoie Museum. It's about how you create a place for meeting and debating issues today.
Meeting and debating is when we have many guided tours, and our colleagues decide not to make a necessary, when they have a group, they don't say this is the museum, etc. They start to hello, how are you? Who are you? What do you want to speak about? They ask the people what is their experience of history of Savoie. They ask the people what they want to speak about. They start with the visitor's experience and they create the visit with them. And it's another way to share. It's not like a descendant, we should say in French. You don't have a narrative, a closed narrative, but you build the narrative with the visitors. That's a way to create the debate. If you have young people like, comment on dit les ados? Adolescents. The teenager, I can't find my words tonight.
Feel comfortable.
Sorry. But the teenagers, you know, they don't like anything, but it's not true. If you ask them what they want to speak about, they start to say, oh, look, that's funny. And they find something. They find, in our museum, we have so many objects from Paleolithic to today. So you always find something. And people start with their own experience. They say, oh, I like that. It can be a stone, it can be a painting, it can be a dress, it can be a ski. And we start the story like that, and we create together. It's like that there is an exchange and a debate. And we have also conferences, etc. More classical way of debating too. But the main way to create the debate is to start with the experience of the visitors.
Thank you. And a question for the Hetloop Museum, coming from the public, it's how you change in a way the narrative of this castle from the royalty to be a place of inclusiveness and accessible for the common citizens and visitors.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think we do both. We tell the historical story about the House of Orange-Nassau in the Netherlands, and it's always very much connected to the history of the Netherlands and to the history of Europe and even global. But what we do, especially in our programming and in our exhibitions, is to take new perspectives on that heritage and on that history. So we tell new stories more about what I said in my presentation, the counterplay, that's the present exhibition. That tells a wonderful story. We know, of course, in the Netherlands that we had 3 queens following upon each other. So from 1898, there was a female head of state in the Netherlands. But what we now do in such an exhibition is not only tell their story and when they were reigning queen, but we tell how that the context in which they became queen, and that was that women didn't have any voting rights and didn't have any legal rights. And so we tell more social economical context, and in that way we connect more to our visitors who know that story by themselves, of course. They know that maybe they are working, but their mothers aren't working, and especially their grandmothers weren't working at all. So it's more, you try to make that connection. So that's what we do in our programming, make a connection with the discussions and the reality of present-day visitors, and then connect it in one way or the other to the historical story of the royal family.
Thank you. A question for you. How you connect this long past with the citizens and the town today?
Castle itself has a multi-layered history, actually. It begins with the ancient times and continues today, actually, and our museum is the part of its modern-day history. So, let's say history actually isn't past. It still survives today. For example, we have a shipwreck called Uluburun. It takes this name from the place which it sank. So it's actually a late Bronze Age shipwreck who traveled around whole Mediterranean and take all goods from the already known civilizations of the late Bronze Age. So today we are talking a global world, but it was global actually at the late Bronze Age time too. So it still continues, history is with us. So it's really interesting to our visitors to coming and seeing that a ship was traveling all around the world and taking goods and making trade with each other, and there are transactions with the all cultural also transactions are happening, and today it's now still continues. So this is our point of view actually.
Thank you. I have a question for all of you, and I would like to ask in which ways you in your presentations you in a way intersect the local, the global, the national, the expectations of the public, because you have these amazing historical places where everyone has an expectation about the narrative of the place. How you confront or how you handle with this. So you could start, please.
Now, I think we do it by telling very layered stories. So we connect both to the local communities, to the national community, and also international. And we try to weave that into our stories, the stories we tell. So I don't think there's a tension between local, national, or international in a way, but you present it in a layered way. And I think we want to connect both local communities to our story, but also national public. And it's of course it's balancing a bit. And what you also try to do is to have a lot of contact with communities locally and regionally, just to fit in with what they find important. But you can expand it and present it in a more layered way.
I think that we are a regional historical museum, and as we speak about history and present issues, we have very local issues. Like when you speak about the glaciers, the climate change, in Savoie it's a very local problem for economy. Our economy is based on ski resorts, on snow. So when we won't have any more snow, it would be an economic catastrophe. And it's also a worldwide issue. Everybody knows that. But in our landscapes, on the historical collections of photographies, you can see the change of your own landscapes, and so you perceive with very local questions a worldwide problem. I think about also the comeback of the wolves. You know, nature is changing too, and some people are very happy to have wolves. But we have also a pastoralism economy, and for tourism it's also a problem. Having wolves means also having dogs, big dogs, in the mountains. And for tourism, it's quite difficult to have this combination. And tourism, but pastoralism now is also, I think, the same problem all over the world. But the Savoyard inhabitants, they know these types, and we show these types of questions. So when you speak about local issues, you speak about a lot of worldwide questions as well. Yeah, thank you. She helped me. And also the questions of migrations. The Savoie was a land where people they live. It was poor, and now it's rich. Now it's a land of immigration. It was a land of departure, and that's also a worldwide question. So when you speak about local questions, it's also worldwide problems.
Thank you. Please.
So if you have 10 hours, I will be happy to explain to you. Well, since recently, Reformation was explained to the population, to the people, to the visitors, even in the previous scenography of the museum, as such an amazing thing. Geneva was so cool. We accepted so many refugees. We built extra floor for the buildings. Everything was amazing, but without talking, of course, about the bad side, about the intolerance, about the fact that Geneva was a theocracy. So what is important here is that we need to be very, to follow carefully what happened in academics, because every day, every month, we have new studies about it, and we can really have a better way to explain the story. So the problem is we have Protestant visitors. They come from Geneva, old families. They come from Brazil, evangelic. They come from Korea. They come from many places, South Africa. And they come in Geneva because Geneva is the core of Reformation with Wittenberg and Zurich. That's the core of Reformation. So we need to please Protestant people. They don't want that we explain that, oh, Protestants, they were very bad, they were killing people, they were like, you cannot just say that only, because then you will lose them. You need to explain to them that that was not, like, everything was not okay. On the other side, you have people who are just coming to have the story, the history as it is, and they are ready to understand that it was massacre, it was intolerance. So you need to find a way. And also the renovation of the museum showed us that some people are like, you don't talk about this story anymore. Yes, because this was not the truth. It's sad. Yeah, but it was not the truth. Okay, I'm not sure I will come back. Yeah, but look, we have other stories. We say the truth, and that's a history of Reformation. What we say is the truth, but we choose, and maybe there's space for other personal stories. So, yeah, John Calvin, that's a good example. John Calvin for Geneva, you come in Geneva, you talk about John Calvin, oh, this guy, that's an Ayatollah, Geneva was Iran back then. Like, you don't have the right to go out, to dance. If you are homosexual, then you are executed. That's not cool. So if you talk about that in Geneva, now they say, yeah, Geneva, that's not a place for party, because that's a Protestantism, that's really bad. But if you come from America, the USA, if you come from Brazil, John Calvin, my God, that's amazing, without knowing all the bad sides. So that's always, that's very difficult. That's like in circus when you walk on a wire. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we have some advantages on that because we are basically an archaeological museum. But we have an example in Kassel. We have the chapel building. But when we made an excavation there, an archaeological excavation, we found that there are some ruins from Hellenistic period. On the top of it, 13th century Byzantine tombs, and on it, the chapel built by the St. John's Knights and the minaret added at the top of the chapel. So we displayed this with glass floor, so you can see everything under it and top of it. Some can say that these were two controversial things with the chapel, with the minarets, and under beneath the mosque, you can pray on the grace in the mosque. Very controversial things, actually. But someone can say that at last, all of these civilizations use this same area as a sacred place. This can unify people also. So we are trying to stay away from all of this and show every aspects of the castle to everyone. So they can see and they can talk about it, they can curious about it, they can ask questions always about it. But we have to show everything as they are.
Thank you so much. There are many questions about fundraising, about artificial intelligence, but we have running of time, and I would like that you know these guys now, so please come with your questions, and a very big applause and a hoo-hoo for Leontine. And thank you so much for this very long day. And now they are waiting for us. Thank you, Piotr. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. That was a lot of great food for our brains, and now food for ourselves awaits downstairs. So there is a break, you can eat, you can be again full of energy, and at 8 p.m. we are starting the concert here. So now we will leave the stage to the technician team and they will prepare some magic here. So I can't wait, I hope you too. We see each other at 8 p.m. right here. Thanks so much.